Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Cole Chesnut, and he is a craftsman, construction manager, and consultant. He started as a carpenter about 25 years ago and worked his way up the ranks. He has started a few small businesses and most recently a local handyman company near Seattle. Cole, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Lance.
And
nice
you even got your shirt on, Agile Remodeling Handyman. I follow your stuff on LinkedIn. Everybody should go follow his page and stuff on LinkedIn. He does these amazing little videos. And by little, I just mean they're short, but they're so informative.
They're low effort.
Yeah, and entertaining. Super entertaining stuff. People just love to watch that kind of, craftsmanship that people, I think is kind of a skill that is just not prevalent anymore. As far as a lot of people having it. So good stuff, Cole.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was kind of, when I started the company, it was actually before the pandemic. So I think about exactly 2 years ago. And I was going to call it Agile Remodeling and not going to use the handyman word at all. Because to me, it's always been kind of a bad word. Or it has negative connotations. It's like somebody who's maybe got a beat up pickup truck and a few tools and a case of beer in the back all the time and that kind of thing. But just looking around on the internet, I saw there's a lot of people who do brand themselves as handyman, and there's some that sell courses and things. And I never bought one, but I did, read their promos. And one of them mentioned the how Google keywords work and so on. And handyman is one that gets searched for often, and it's a low cost, pay-per-click type thing. Mm-hmm. So that kind of drove my decision to add the word handyman to the business. So Agile Remodeling Handyman.
It's working for you, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's peel back the onion a little bit. Why don't you tell me, like, where did you start your entrepreneurial journey? I know you're a free market, liberty, freedom guy like myself. You believe in individualism. And meritocracy. Did you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Did you grow up poor? Like, what led you to that? And I know I also want to get into at some point, like your experiences in Russia. I know you have some experiences over there. Yeah.
Yeah. I speak a little bit of Russian, kind of a long story how I got there, but I'll give you the short version. But yeah, I grew up poor. It's kind of hard to starve in America. There was always a food bank or something. So I wasn't necessarily hungry, but in a figurative sense. I think that hunger, just the necessity of, well, if I don't provide for myself, nothing against people taking government benefits and things, but I just would like to do more, that's all. So, I started out as a carpenter. I think my first job as an adult I had a bunch of jobs when I was a kid. My mom had a house cleaning kind of thing. I think it was under the table business, but I'd work with her and she'd pay me a bit, and, had a bunch of little things, fixing up things like bicycles, junk bicycles, putting them together from parts and selling them to other kids. The little hustles of like selling gum and candy at school and it's not allowed. And, just all those kind of little things when I was a kid. I never really thought of it as entrepreneurial. I'm not even sure I even knew that word until I was in my 20s. But my first job as an adult, I was kind of like a lot attendant, at a car dealership, just cleaning cars, running errands, stuff like that. And I got kind of bored with it. I didn't really, just something I stumbled into, it was like, hey, I'll apply for this job, and first job you apply for, they give you. So you take it, I got kind of bored with it, and I was asking around, and one of my best friend's family was running at the time, it was just a couple framing crews. So I joined them when I was 18, and I worked for them for like 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And they grew really fast from having 2 framing crews to starting to do siding. And by the time I left, about 7 years later, they were doing, full on development and some remodels and stuff. And I went from there to a remodeling company about 4 years. And then I think I'm kind of old, so I started in the 90s, which was a boom time, lots of opportunities, lots of room for growth. And was it about 2008? I think I took a new job with a design build firm, and I worked there for about a year, and I didn't get laid off, but I could tell it was coming. The next project in the pipeline got canceled or delayed, and And so I started searching around, and I was emailing a few friends that I'd worked with in previous companies. And I'm not a super outgoing guy. I'm kind of introverted, but you make connections with some people and get their phone numbers and emails once in a while, and hang out outside of work. And so I emailed people, and one of my friends called me one night. I think it was like a Friday night, and I was just hanging out with some friends at my house and just start to drink beer. And it was a little bit noisy. And my friend calls and he says, "Hey, I'm over here working on," I thought he said the Falkland Islands. And all I could remember of the Falkland Islands was when I was a kid. It's like South America. There was some invasion there with the British, and I don't know, it was Chile or something. But anyway, I thought it was a tropical island. So I was like, hey, cool, I'm going to go to the tropics. And it turned out he was saying Sakhalin Island, which is like off the east coast of Russia. It's considered Siberia, Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I just kind of stumbled into that. And yeah, it was odd. When I was a kid, I had actually had a book of Russian language. I was really curious, when I was a kid in the 80s, it was still, Reagan and Bush and the Cold War and all this stuff. So I was always curious about like the Iron Curtain and, reading about like missionaries. And my mom actually had this book of Russian language. And so I had read it. Like I knew the alphabet, I knew basic words. I couldn't speak very well, but I could sort of read and understand a bit, And so that didn't really get me into the job, but it got me some, quick camaraderie with the guys on site, coming out, stumbling through and trying to say, "Привет, привет, товарищ," and just like try to learn my Russian accent and stuff.
What was your favorite experience over there working, and how long did you work over there?
I was there for a year, and then I actually was just going to go for a few months. They were doing actually like production framing, actually, strangely enough. And I think a lot of the local crew there, or the carpenters that they had, were quite competent carpenters, but they're more old world, in terms of, hammers and hand saws rather than nail guns and skill saws, so a lot of it had to do with training for productivity than quality, because framing can be a little lower quality than, say, building furniture like a carpenter might want to do. And then a lot of it was, I'm a decent writer. I mean, I don't have very good grammar or anything, but I will write the technical documents, job hazard analysis, steps and action steps and mitigations for safety and stuff like that. And yeah, I thought I'd be there for a couple months, and it turned out to like a 4-year gig with this company. They had me work in, where was next? Yeah, I worked in Russia for a year, and then I worked out kind of Las Vegas, California border on a solar energy plant for a year. And then they sent me to Papua New Guinea for 2 years. And I ended up running the company over there with like 200 people. And it was just nuts, just like a whirlwind of pressure, but it kind of forced me to grow and learn a lot more and realize that I don't really want to run a company with 200 people. Somewhere in the happy medium would be good. But
yeah. But, let's talk about that kind of transition. So I didn't realize that you worked for a company. You had that that you had this 7-year stint with one company you talked about at the beginning, and then the 4-year, and now this one. But now you're doing your own thing. So maybe talk about the big differences maybe that you see, positive, negative, of working for one company versus job hopping, and also then going off on your own endeavors like you're doing now with your handyman business.
Oh, sure. Yeah. As far as, the handyman business is like, obviously I'm doing everything. So that's really challenging. I really like the freedom of it. Not that you can just take all the time off in the world. I mean, I have to earn money.
Right.
But living near, Seattle is kind of a major metropolitan city, and the cost of living here is high. So the wages are pretty high. And if I live frugally, then I can do well. And I found like, previously I had a company for, I think, almost 4 years with 3 employees. I was actually trying to do new construction, but I had a hard time breaking into it. And so we sort of pivoted and did remodeling. And then one of the guys died in a car wreck, and one retired. He was like 63, and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just started getting stressed out, and I took a job for a company for a few months. And then I couldn't handle that. I was spoiled from, it's hard to describe, but from being able to do everything and being able to direct my own way, to sort of having to settle down into like attending meetings, so I didn't do that for very long, just finished the project. And then that's when I started the remodeling the handyman business, that I intended to be a remodeling business, but I've honestly been working by myself now for 2 years. And I work as a consultant as well for some of the companies that I used to work for. So my strategy with the handyman thing was to have some freedom and flexibility. That I'm never booked out very far. I mean, even right now, I think my schedule's full this week and a few days next week, but by next week, it'll be full for another week and a half. So it's always like 1-2 weeks. And if I need to, I can reschedule things, or I can budget a few hours a day to do consulting. I do some of it online, filling out reports and tidying up proposals and things like that for companies. And so I've been sticking with it. But this past year has been really weird, of course. But I was in a good position having this handyman thing, because I don't know how this works, but with COVID and whatever, this pandemic and all this, especially around Seattle, I think it started here, and people here tend to be more progressive. So I think just as like in terms of resisting Trump or whatever, they're like, super paranoid about COVID, which I think it's a real thing. It's a concern,
Yeah.
I'm careful with, customers and so on. But anyway, a lot of the businesses is shut down here. So like people weren't answering the phones, and my phone was blowing up. I mean, even now in the past month, I sat down and looked. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. And
No, you're good. Question. Keep going. I love teeing you up.
Yeah, I sat down and looked, and between emails and text messages and phone calls, I've been getting over the past few weeks about 100 opportunities a week, which I'm a one-man show. Occasionally I have help, or I do have a general contractor license, but then again, there's not that many subcontractors right now who are especially not available on short notice. And it's blown up. So I've been learning more about marketing. It's sort of rough guerrilla marketing, my videos. But sorry, I got off track, but
two questions then that come up while we're to maybe steer you back to wherever the track is. And honestly, this is supposed to be kind of the fun conversation. So you're doing fine. One would be, with your Austrian economics kind of background, as far as understanding boom and bust cycles, right? And for me, I'd been predicting on the podcast since we started in 2017 that there was going to be a big bust in 2020, because I believe in about a 7-year cycle. That's where I'm at. And in Colorado, we saw it come out in 2013. We started to come out of it, and then it was like, okay, 2020, like, here we go. And it was, but in a weird way with this pandemic. The other thing were you surprised about, was it just completely mind blowing to you that you were getting that many calls, and that actually your business in particular was thriving when it didn't seem like it should have been?
Well, I kind of fell for the 2 weeks. If we shut down for 2 weeks, then we'll be back to normal. Yeah. And so I did that, and then I was like, well, I'll wait another week, and then I was like, screw it, I'm getting back to work. And I take the precautions and so on, especially if a customer is especially concerned.
Sure.
But I was a little bit surprised about it. But in hindsight, it I didn't see it coming, but it made sense. And when I got into economics was probably around the 2008, 2009 thing. And then after that, I started following some things. There was like, what was that? Occupy Wall Street and stuff. And I wasn't involved in any of it, but you'd read on the internet and go down different tangents of different, economic schools and schools of thought, I suppose. So I do think there's something predictable to the business cycle and recession cycle. Although what throws it out of whack, of course, is monetary inflation. Right. If you double the money supply in a year, well, I think it's actually like 25% more or something. And
it's more. And we're on this like amazing, we're kind of drunk. I feel like we're drunk. We're we're partying and we're just hammered right now. And then my prediction is 2024, the hangover is going to set in. It's like, oh, here we go. Big trouble. At some point you got to get hung over.
I feel like a lot of it is sort of just delaying the pain. It's like taking painkillers, but not really addressing the root cause of the, it's getting out the symptoms, but not the root cause of the disease, sort of.
Yeah, 100%. tell us about your marketing. So how did you get your first clients? Once you decided that I'm going back to work, or even before that, when you started the business?
Oh yeah.
Was it just word?
First,
Was it just word of mouth, or?
yeah. I mean, I've been, now it's almost 25 years. So I know a lot of people around here around Seattle, and just a few phone calls, I can pick up a job pretty easy. But like I said, I was like, finally, I'm going to start my own licensed and bonded and insured company, because I'd had lots of side hustles in the past with like weekend projects and helping out other businesses. And then I got into remodeling my own house. I bought a house that was almost 100 years old, and it was kind of the dump of the neighborhood, the eyesore.
Yeah.
And was fixing up that house, and all the neighbors around were seeing it. So right away, I got people interested, in my neighborhood. And so I just, again, sort of things just come together. And I said, well, I better start a company. And I know a few people I wanted to hire. And yeah, just, it started real fast. Within the first time I started was 2014. And I think I hired a couple guys within like 2 months. And yeah, we were doing good, like right away. Hired an admin like a couple months later, because I couldn't keep up with the admin of having employees. That's another one of the most surprising things to me, was having come up and been, everything from labor to like operations manager in construction companies.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I knew the business, but I didn't know about sort of the behind the scenes or the stuff that's being done outside the business. I certainly didn't know enough about sales or marketing or anything. But yeah, I still don't know a lot, but I learned a lot on the internet. I watched YouTube videos about it, and picked up a few books.
Would you recommend, give us some that you'd recommend to people? And because one of your notes here, you say like developing entrepreneurial skills versus being a natural entrepreneur. And I'm not sure if there is a natural entrepreneur, maybe.
Sure.
But I think a lot of it is hands-on learning. Like you just dive into it. Do you have any resources you'd recommend for listeners?
Yeah, there's a pretty good, another podcast they call Sweaty Startup. That's been going for the past few years. And I've learned a lot from them about sort of guerrilla marketing, and how to get customers on a low budget and that sort of thing. Because right now, since I think I stopped advertising in February, because like I said, I just get too many calls. Which normally I'd say you want to advertise all the time if you have a company and people to support, or you're trying to grow the company. But like I'm sort of trying to just be a one-man show, so that I have that flexibility to also do consulting when those gigs come up. But yeah, I've learned from other guys like the power of video. And I'm sort of an introverted, and at first I was really camera shy. Like 2 or 3 years ago when I first got a GoPro, it was about 2 years ago, I turned it on myself in a room, and like immediately started sweating and stuttering. Yeah. And I was like, that's really weird. So yeah, I don't know, just this fear of like, I'm recording this video, and if I put it out on the internet, like all these people could see it. Yeah. I don't know. But I just, I kind of resolved to, I don't think my videos are that great, but they're improving. I kind of resolved to make 100 crappy videos, and just to try to make them in like a year. So that would be about 2 every week. And so I just started doing that and just trying different things. And initially it was like, well, I'm just going to show like not my face and not talk very much, just kind of show where I'm at and what I'm doing. And yeah, just gradually I've become pretty comfortable with it. I'm not really shy around people, but for some reason the camera just freaked me out. Just had no experience with talking to a camera,
Dude, some folks are like that. It's really interesting. And then some folks just gravitate towards it. But I think no matter what, I think the lesson here is like, obviously you had that struggle and you just kept doing it and made a commitment to do it. I mean, I don't know if you listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki for multiple reasons. But like, I joke to my wife all the time about him. I'm like, if Robert Kiyosaki with his terrible gravelly voice can be a world famous podcaster, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
So like, just keep the perspective of like, don't count yourself short with all of these ideas and things that you think you will not help you go over that edge or go over the fence and jump at it.
Yeah. That Rich Dad Poor Dad book, somebody gave that to me when I was about 20 or 21. And yeah, was kind of life-changing. I don't follow Kiyosaki very often. Some once in a while he pops up on YouTube and I'll watch a little bit, but yeah, that sort of thing of changing from the mindset of like scarcity to abundance and concentrating on investing in assets and that sort of thing was, that was just a whole different world to me. So that, yeah, I do definitely give that guy a lot of credit. I don't know what he's doing now, but I think that book was great.
Yeah, but he's just buying more gold and silver with his hot wife and Bitcoin as well. Hawaii. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
He's hilarious. Yeah.
The power of video, I think, is really amazing, because I can't remember the statistics, but the amount of video that people watch is just insane, or just on YouTube or LinkedIn. And like I said, my videos aren't especially good quality, but I learn a little bit, and just putting it out there. Like, it's less than 1% of people are putting videos out there. I mean, it's probably like 1 in 1,000, I would bet, or maybe even fewer. But sometimes the video doesn't have to be great, but just the fact that you're talking about that topic, like somebody might not even watch the video. Like they could go to my YouTube channel and see these 100 crappy videos, and maybe they don't watch any of them. They don't know they're crappy, but they might see me as an expert because I've talked about all these different topics, and it has led to a lot more opportunities. I mean, I think you commented on a video. I was just eating lunch and talking about how much money you can make replacing toilets, which I don't like to do, but yeah. So
it was awesome. And they're cathartic, honestly. Like when you watching other people do stuff is cathartic. So the one that I thought, another one I'd bring up that everybody should go check out is like Cole replaced this old, I think it was cedar in the control joints of a driveway or something like that. It was cathartic to watch because you got to see the whole process, and it was just like, oh, okay. I mean, how often do you get to watch that? I don't know. So I think there's a lot of value in stuff like that people don't even realize. So on the topic of value, how did you figure out how much to charge? How do you value and start figuring out that time? That's always one of the big problems is people are like, am I charging too little, too much, in the middle? Where should I be at? Right.
Yeah. That's one of the big things. Like you mentioned Austrian economics, and subjective value, I think, is a big concept of that value is sort of in the eye of the beholder. And the value of something is, well, in monetary terms, is what somebody will pay for it. I mean, just that simple. So I think when I first started out my first company having employees, part of where I went wrong was in trying to be too cheap, trying to compete by being the lowest price, and also by being somewhat ignorant of some overhead costs and things that caught up. And by the time I figured it out, I've got 6 months or a year of those costs built up, and so on. And in hindsight, I should have like doubled or tripled my prices, to be honest. Wow. And I probably still would have gotten some work.
Yep.
Because part of the problem was I was winning like 80 or 90% of the bids that I would go on, or the bids that I would submit, which is, I mean, that's not actually a good sign.
It's not
but to a beginner, you think, wow, I'm winning all these jobs.
Well, and the percentage I've always heard,
the cheapest person.
Yeah, the percentage I've always heard is 50%. Is you don't want to win more than 50%. I don't know if you would agree, but
now I think 50 or lower for sure. A lot of people say like 2 out of 5, which would be 40%. But yeah, a lot of it, I started paying more attention instead of to like being the cheapest person, or even I started paying a little more attention to market rates at first, looking up different things. You can buy cost books on the internet, or, where they do annual surveys of companies and what do these different activities cost for labor and materials, and you're gonna have a multiplier for your area. But again, that's sort of you're still sort of competing based on price. So I started learning to present my value. And a lot of this I learned from other companies, with the remodeling companies that I used to work for. A lot of their big thing was like cleanliness, because that was one of the most frequent complaints from customers is like, well, I have these other contractors in here and they made a mess and they trampled my flowers and, put cigarette butts on my lawn and stuff like that, or, nails in the driveway, all these kinds of things. And so that was my first sort of value add was to tell them, well, I work really cleanly, and I took some pictures of, zip wall systems that you can put up, the spring loaded poles and plastic and zippers that you can, control dust, or, just if you're changing a door or a window, keep the wind from blowing in and out, and those kinds of things. And then I just learned little by little to sort of just to spend a little more time getting to know people, each individual customer, and try to figure out just kind of empathetically, like what are their personal values? Do they value more communication? Do they want to have a video chat with me every day? Or do they, just whatever they value? It's not all the same for each person, I think. And
how do you pull that out of them? Do you have a checklist, or do you just kind of have?
I don't really, and being that I'm kind of operating solo, I just sort of do it intuitively. Whereas I think I would have to systematize it somewhat if I actually had a company with, salespeople and so on. But there are probably some resources out there for that. I'm trying to remember. I've read so many books; they all just kind of turn into a blob in my head, just a blob of information, But yeah, there. I think if you look up things, subjective value. I can't remember the title of the book, but yeah. Anyway, it's definitely, I think, the way to sell. And it just depends, like with oftentimes with subcontractors, you're working for a general contractor. Of course, safety is a big thing. Any company that doesn't have their safety stuff in line is out. But just millions of different things, and it changes a lot too. That's part of the trouble. Is sometimes when I think I have somebody pegged in the initial sales meeting, I used to ask people, I used to do what you're saying, and try to figure out what's your priority, or to say these things, out of these things, cleanliness and quality and timeliness, which is your top. But I find that what people say and how they actually act later in the moment is not the same.
Interesting.
Often. So I just kind of gauge it just based on their behavior, how they respond. I don't even ask those questions anymore.
Yeah.
I've honestly found them kind of useless, and also just things change in different contexts, the context of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're doing those fundamental things that you talked about, a clean job site, a safe job site, communicating, maybe testing different communication styles out, and then just feeling it all out as you go. But if you have that base of fundamentals, that probably tackles it for you without having to maybe ask those kind of questions and in sort of that weird mechanical way.
True. Yeah. And some of it's also a little bit of like screening, because like I've set up a handyman website, agileremodeling.com.
Nice.
It's pretty thorough. I've been adding stuff to it little by little over the past couple of years. I think there's like 25 pages or something. And there's like one page for each of the surrounding 5 or 6 cities where I live, so that when people search like handyman near me, it'll pop up for those cities. But part of it's like I've been pretty transparent about, like, I have a list of 10 frequent tasks and what they typically cost. Your results may vary, kind of that disclaimer just in case. But
yep.
And I don't do a whole lot of hourly rate work, but I do post an hourly rate because sometimes it's appropriate. And generally the people who care about the hourly rate will see it and say it's too high and not even call me. So like I've already sort of pre-screened a lot of people out. And I can tell, like, when someone calls and says, how much do you charge? Or what's your rate? I can tell that's not my customer. Like,
yep.
Just
if
right
it's
off
their
the
first
bat,
if their first question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I might be wrong occasionally, but almost without fail, that's not going to be my customer. It would be a waste of time to meet with that person. Yep. So I tell them you can look on my website and blah, blah, blah. And then generally, 5 minutes later, someone else calls who's, sort of sees my value or has already been reading through my website, and they're telling me about me. They're telling me why they want me.
What would you say to somebody who says, Cole, why would you put your prices out there like that? Now everybody's going to be able to undercut you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that it might not be the best advice for a big company or for one that has like a full-time sales team, because it can be a lot more subjective, but I'm just sort of working in a very small niche. And I think it works for me. It's hard to say though, that it would scale, to a larger company. Because I think you have to sort of how your prices fluctuate a bit more with the market. And I am kind of going back pretty often to revise some of those things that I had posted.
Oh,
and
especially with inflation, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some things I was initially much more ambitious with the transparency. I was thinking like every time I posted, say a project, like here's a bathroom remodel and here's what the budget was. But then I was thinking, well, a year from now, that might not be right, and so on. So I didn't go quite that far. I just picked some real common tasks, like a funny thing that I've never done until last year.
That's right.
Cleaning. Yeah, well, I did a few of those because back in the day I did some apartment rehabs and insurance work, so we change the floor. You have to, pull and reset the toilet. But what is it? Laundry dryer vents. Those the little tube that comes out the back, and sometimes they're real long and convoluted, and go all circuitous routes. And I've been cleaning those, and so I've just had a set price, basically 2 hours if it's 15 feet long or less, which is what the laundry dryer manufacturers recommend. And it's weird. I'd never done it before, but I think the tools to do it cost if you already have a drill, you can just buy some attachments. These little tent poles that connect together and a brush. And it's almost, initially I thought, no, this isn't worth doing, because there's a company in the local area that just does that, and they have a website that just markets to that, so they probably get tons of leads for it. But I get some, and it's a lot of times I found with those little things that are almost too much of a pain in the butt to do, is sometimes it's like a test. The customer wants to hire you for a couple hours and see how you work together, or if you actually provide the value that they think they see in your website, or how you dealt with them on the phone or something. And a lot of times those little things that are like 2 hours and maybe not terribly profitable, do turn into larger projects. It's surprising how often that happens.
Yeah.
And even when I'm not really trying to show off, just communicating with people, I'd say like three things. And I think I got this from the Sweaty Startup guy. I forgot his name, Nick. But basically his thing was with these small, solo or small crew service companies, that basically if you just simply answer the phone for one thing, which isn't too hard to do when you're starting a company, because you're not getting that many calls. When it gets harder now, but if you answer the phone, if you provide your estimates in a timely manner, and you can start the work in it and finish it in a timely manner, like those are obvious, but there's so many people that fail at all three of those, that if you can get even one or two, or especially all three of those, like you're really going to impress people. And it's even easier to do when you start out, I think, in my opinion, because you're just not that busy.
Right.
But that's sort of been my ethos. And now it's getting hard to keep up with those, to say no to the 90 out of those 100 people that contact me a week. But
yeah. I know the answer is probably no to this, but if you were to grow, because I think you're such a good case study for people who are listening, of like, he's worked for other big firms and then kind of scaled back down for the freedom part of it, and clearly is proving his value to customers and developing a very successful solo business. But if you were to scale it, what kind of tips would you give yourself if you were to convince yourself, like, how would you do it this time? Maybe learning all you've learned.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely, this time around, even though I'm not ruling out the possibility of scaling, but just not trying to do it yet. But I think this time around, I've actually been sort of systematizing more, whereas the first time around I was kind of coming up with, say a closeout document or something. I was coming up at the end of the project, and a lot of times it's just you Google something and copy something and slap your company header on there, whereas this time, having more experience, I've been more aware of systematizing. And in terms of, I'm just one guy, but I can use things like I don't, in hindsight, I probably should have hired somebody to do my website, but at first I had some free time and I just bought a template for $100 and used it to make a website. You just fill in the blanks and replace their pictures and so on.
What website software did you use to make it?
This time was WordPress.
Okay.
Another one that I used for a different website before was Squarespace. I think that's even easier. You know, I know it's super advertised and some people don't go for advertised things, but that's one of the easiest, you know, I'd say balance of like low cost and high quality and easy to make and edit. They've just got some really sleek templates. But I wanted to, I've got some little strange side hustles and, you know, trying to do like product fulfillment and little odds and ends. So with WordPress, I can add on a bunch of websites without adding on more fees, you know, because you can basically have a big package and fit a whole bunch of websites under one account. So, but yeah, I've gotten more into this time around, even though I'm a one man show, into using like CRM software, customer relationship management. And I've tried a few different things. There's a pretty cool one I tried last year called Markate. It's spelled strangely, Markate. And it's kind of like, well, most people are familiar with like House Call Pro, I think it's called. There's some others that are geared toward bigger firms that you can use. You know, pretty much you store all your documents and process them through it. And, you know, as soon as somebody contacts you, you get their name, address, email, phone number logged in. And then from there, you sort of set up a workflow. Right now I'm using just a really simple system from Square. You know, those little white square things, like if you go to a craft fair or whatever.
Yep.
So I've got that, and they actually have a pretty good online system that includes, if you want it, for free actually, or I should say for no additional charge, nothing's free. But they have a scheduling thing called Appointments that works just fine for me. I'm surprised how many people will hire me, and I've never talked to them, I've never emailed them or anything. So that kind of goes against what I'm saying of figuring, you know, even having to figure out someone's value, but they've already looked at my website and decided like, I trust this guy enough that they're going to put skin in the game. They're going to pay me my minimum charge to go meet them to work for them. Like whatever it is, say cleaning their dryer vent or something. I have a list of those 10 tasks that they can just choose from, and they can see my availability and make a down payment. And I tried doing it without the down payment, but I got tons of spam. So that's another thing I found is like, I find that customers who will put skin in the game, again, those are my customers. The ones who are like, well, yeah, I want you to make hold the appointment for me, but I don't want to make a down payment yet. You know, it's like, well, if I'm committed, you know, then you need to be committed too. And, you know, back and forth sort of. But yeah, so I found those two, Markate, and now I'm using Square just because it was simpler and actually there's no monthly fees and so on. So it worked out better for me. But there's pretty good things like with online documents, as far as, you know, e-signatures, there's a bunch of different, you know, DocuSign and probably dozens of other companies that do that. Virtual meetings, you know, like we're doing now. I have started doing some, I have like, I don't know, like 5 of these different video conferencing things. But sometimes if it's in my neighborhood, I'll just stop by on the way home or on the way out in the morning or something, make an appointment. But a lot of times it's a little out of the way. And I feel like if I can seal a deal quickly, you know, through a video conference, that's been a game changer over the past year. Like I said, just getting, not only me getting more comfortable with videos, but everybody else too. You know, everybody has Zoom on their phone now or some other software. And I've been doing, like people move out of their house or they're going to buy a house and they haven't closed on it yet. So they'll kind of show me around like, hey, and I tell them, oh, can you show me underneath there? You know, show me behind there, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes on a video call, you can save yourself a lot of time, you know, not having to drive, not having to actually go and meet people. And yeah, same thing. Like that's led to a lot of help. I do have a virtual assistant that helps me. I mean, it's actually a person, but just over the internet. Yeah. You know, I've never actually even met her in person, and she helps me do some weekly tasks as far as, you know, cleaning up my paperwork. And I have also a similar arrangement with a bookkeeper. They're actually local, but which is odd because they do it all virtually. So like you can either mail them your receipts every week, or you can scan them and email them to them. And then, you know, they've got bookkeepers and a CPA on staff and so on. So all of those things sort of help me to scale my solo business, you know, with all these sort of virtual tools and so on. But yeah, as far as if I do want to hire employees, I think a lot of it comes down to like having more realistic procedures in place, and already having systems in place.
I really like that. I really like that you started off with systematizing. It is so important to do it, but also not make it so that it constrains you. I think there's got to be a certain level of looseness as you work out all the kinks and everything. So
sure.
Cole, it sounds like you're primed and ready to grow. If you were to convince yourself to do it and take away some of that awesome freedom you have now.
I was going to say another thing I've realized, just sort of personal growth, is I think at first, when I first started a company, I wanted to find other people like me, and so that's where I was kind of hiring friends that I had worked with before, who we had similar personalities and similar skills. And now I think I would do, nothing against them, but I think I would do the opposite and try to find people that have complementary skills, that have the skills that I don't have. Maybe I would try to find like a stronger salesman, because that's not really my strength. I, like you probably intuited, that I'm a bit lazy about the sales part. I just sell enough so that I can get to work,
Yep.
But I've definitely realized that the value of sales, that's a big thing. And just having people with a variety of skills, that can kind of pick up the slack from other people, kind of thing.
I think it shows
I don't want to put it that way. It's more of a positive thing.
No, I know what you mean. I think I'm reading it as 100% positive. That's what my business partner and a lot of the folks that I hire do, is that they fill in the gaps that I lack, because nobody's perfect. So I think it shows a level of confidence and maturity that it takes a while for people to sort of get there as they start their businesses. One of the last big topics I wanted you to talk about was maybe kind of this is a hurdle that's, I think it sometimes it kills the small businesses from the get-go, is they get really tangled up with lawyers and producing these crazy, scary looking contracts instead of more fair contracts. How did you tackle that part of it? Did you, and then also even setting up, like, I always tell people, like, it's very easy actually to go to your Secretary of State, and just set up an LLC. Like it's not this giant process, and you don't have to have a lawyer right away. How did you do it?
The first time around, well, both times I've set it up myself, because Washington State, they have a pretty simple system. I'm not against people working under the table, by the way, but if you want to do bigger projects and such, you're going to need insurance, and customers are going to want that, and you're going to limit your opportunities. And it's also like, if you end up in court, you're automatically going to be wrong, that sort of thing. So there are reasons not to work under the table. But I don't really fault anybody. I think that's a good way to get started. That's how I started out on the weekends and so on. But I know one of the challenges is it varies so much from state to state. I know a handyman that I follow on YouTube works in California, and he says that they have a $500 limit on what they can bid, like, to a customer for a project. So a lot of times, and I don't work in California, luckily. It's not quite so restrictive here, but a lot of times they have to bid like multiple $500 projects for one customer. You know what I mean? And they have to like we're going to do $500 today, and then come back tomorrow and do, quit early and come back tomorrow and do $500, or on a separate contract. It's just goofiness. And there's a lot of restrictions there. It's really hard to get a general contractor license and stuff, which would open you up to bigger budgets. But in Washington, it's pretty easy. I don't remember if they did even like a background check or anything. It's just a matter of filling out forms and paying the fees and doing them in the right sequence. I think there's like 6 or 7 steps. Register with this secretary, your business name with the Secretary of State. I can't remember the exact sequence, but get bond and insurance, and then take your bond and insurance to the Department of Labor and Industries and get your general contractor license. And they ask you some questions, your work history. I don't know if they verify anything, but I didn't have any problems. I mean, it was just a matter of time. It took like 2 weeks, because of the steps, and some of them you submit and they take a couple days to approve or to send you your document that you need for the next step.
And how about your contracts? I know you're doing some smaller work. So like, is there a contract even for the little tiny stuff, or is it just a handshake and a smile?
Well, my first time around, I think I had worked for several companies before, so I had like copies of theirs contracts, and I took parts that made sense. But if I recall, it was like 5 pages long. And well, we were doing fairly big projects at that time, actually, but some of the stuff was not applicable, and some of it I didn't understand. I didn't even know what indemnification was, so like, when you're sitting with a customer and you're talking through the steps, like, make sure they understand everything before they sign it. oh no, I don't even know my own contract.
Yeah.
So eventually I hired an actual construction lawyer, and if I recall, he just charged me $250, and he gave me two contracts. One, he said, like, this is good for about under $1,000 budget. And then another that he said is good for, up to 10,000 or maybe more. And, come back if you want to do a bigger project, and you should probably, if you're doing 100,000 and more projects, you should probably have a lawyer review each one of those contracts, possibly if they vary greatly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now a lot of times when I'm doing like less than, a day or less, then I have just a real simple contract. I think in the Washington State, if it's over $1,000, then you have to provide them with like what do you say?
Sales
lien.
use?
Like the right to lien paperwork that says, I'm a registered contractor with the state's holding my bond, and you can make a claim against that bond. And if you don't pay, then I can put a lien against your property and stuff. But if it's under $1,000, that's not required here. So that's kind of what I just have a very simple, it's very simple agreement that for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then if it gets bigger, then I whip out that additional page and just tack it on the back.
Sure thing. Yeah, that was great. That's very startup-y. I mean, it sounds like, like the $250 fee and working, finding old examples and parsing and picking and then having it reviewed. I think that's honestly probably the best, most flexible and succinct kind of way to do it. One last question I like to ask everybody, Cole, is knowing what you know now, and if you could go all the way back in time to when you first started on that framing crew, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I think I touched on it a bit, talking about the value of sales and marketing and coming into those values quite late in life. I mean, I'm already in my 40s now, and just started learning about that stuff. But I think if I had been more apt about presenting my value, I would have been better at getting raises and things. I remember, the first company I started out with, when they started, they were quite informal, and they didn't have, regular reviews. Like if you wanted a raise, you had to ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't very good at asking for a raise, so I remember being quite frustrated by that. And that kind of continued for quite a while, until I started realizing, well, I have to get better at presenting what I do, because it's not just what you do, it's can you sell it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things. It seems like everything I see online these days, as far as get rich quick schemes and stuff that's geared toward kids, is all about sales. But I think, of course, you got to develop some other skills, because a lot of it's just teaching people to sell, and so on. There's this like pyramid scheme of this guy teaches these people and teach these people to teach these people. But I do think there's actually some value in that stuff, of learning, like we were talking about, subjective value and how to negotiate, I guess is the proper term. That's what I wish I had learned a lot sooner.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. Cole, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we could connect today. If people want to connect with you for your handyman business, where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
Oh yeah, I have two websites. I have colechesnut.com, which is basically just kind of a blog and some stuff about consulting and some of the bigger projects that I work on. Some of the stuff I do lately, I can't put on there because of NDAs and stuff, but I have another website, agileremodel.com, and some corresponding YouTube channel, Instagram. I'm not real big on social media. Oh, LinkedIn. You could hit me up on LinkedIn. I've started posting more on there recently. It's an annoying website to browse, but again, I think it's one of those important things. And even it's kind of overwhelmingly populated with professionals and recruiters and job seekers. But I think there's a lot of room for people like in more labor-oriented jobs that they can really stand out on there and find a lot of opportunities and other people to work with to help grow your business, or to help you out with these other things like sales and marketing and stuff like that. I learn a lot from that platform.
Yeah, 100%. They need a laugh react. I think that's the thing that's missing out for me and you, right? We're trying to make jokes on there. Like, where's a laugh react?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's, kind of posing on there and not wanting to comment anything that might be offensive or especially funny. Yeah. Just in case somebody doesn't get it or.
Yeah. Hilarious. Cole, thanks again for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you on. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Lance. It's nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk soon.